Thank you, Acting President. I stand to speak in support of the Estate Agent Residential Tenancies and Other Acts Amendment Bill 2024. And as we know, on 20th September 2023, the Labor government released a landmark package to boost housing supply and affordability in Victoria, representing the largest scale planning and housing reform in Victoria in generations. Victoria's housing statement, the decade ahead, 2024 to 2034, was developed to account for the fact that Victoria is the fastest growing state in Australia, with our population set to hit 10.3 million by 2051. This bill is the first step in our establishment of the Rental Dispute Resolution Victoria. The amendments proposed to the Estate Agents Act 1980 and the Residential Tenancies Act 1997 will allow government to contemporise the uses of the Victorian Property Fund and the Residential Tenancies Fund to support alternative dispute resolution services, including Rental Dispute Resolution Victoria. These amendments will ensure that funds can be used to facilitate a fairer rental market for renters, industry professionals and rental providers through a contemporary, responsive, faster and cheaper dispute resolution service. The Victorian Property Fund is a trust fund established under the Estate Agents Act 1980 and administered by Consumer Affairs Victoria. The fund receives income from several sources, including licence fees paid by estate agents and conveyancers, and any fines and penalties payable under the Estate Agents Act 1980 and the Conveyancers Act 2006, interest on estate agents and conveyancers' trust accounts and investment income. Currently, CAV administers grants and compensation claims from the VPF, including compensation for individuals and corporations where an estate agent, conveyancer or their representative has misused or misappropriated trust money or property. The Residential Tenancies Fund receives income from payment of penalties and fees under the Residential Tenancies Act 1997, transfer of surplus funds from investment income earned via the RTBA, or any gifts, donations or bequests money made to the fund. The RTF is currently used to fund the administration of the Act and costs relating to residential tenancy matters at VCAT. Under the legislation, the funds were specifically established to fund the administration of the legislation. These changes will contemporise the ways in which government uses these funds to allow us to continue to administrate the legislation through alternative dispute resolution services. This change will also enable the funds to be used to resource organisations that deliver critical advocacy and assistance to consumers in relation to housing and property issues under the Act. And this includes funding for the financial counselling program administered by CAV, which alleviates the impacts of economic abuse and financial hardship and helps Victorians manage debts, stabilise their financial situation and rebuild and get on with their lives. And when Victorians are facing issues, paying for those essential services, whether it's energies, telcos, toll roads, whatever it might be, the services that financial counsellors and others provide, absolutely vital. And we know that, that housing is an essential service. And it's this side, this government, that has put in 130 reforms to making renting fairer. I could spend a lot of time going through those, but I simply don't have the time. But Victorians know that there's this side that is ensuring that those fair rental laws are in place. So with more people in Victoria and more renting than ever before, could likely see the increase in the number of disputes. And often a rental dispute can just be one of, as I mentioned before, those essential services, cost of living pressures that they could be facing. So they need a quick resolution. It's not always the best outcome when renters and industry professionals end up at VCAT, especially when it comes to straightforward disputes. So the Rental Dispute Resolution Victoria will provide a one-stop shop for renters, agents and landlords to resolve tenancy disputes over rent, damages, repairs and bonds. It will have a clear pathway to settle issues in a faster, fairer and cheaper way, freeing up VCAT for more serious or complicated matters. The bill will also see the discontinuation of the Estate Agents Council, the EAC and the Public Records Advisory Council, the PRAC. And as we're constantly reviewing and modernising the ways in which we consult with stakeholders, this decision was made by government last year in recognition of the need for flexible consultation with a broader group of stakeholders, including First Nations people. The final thing I'd like to touch on is the sex work fund closure. As the sex work Regulation Fund was established as a trust account to support the operation of the previous sex work licensing and registration scheme, following the full decriminalisation of sex work on the 1st of December 2023, it is fiscally prudent for the government to make the administrative change to close the fund, given it no longer serves a required purpose. This is the final administrative step in our decriminalisation of sex work to ensure that sex workers have access to the same rights as any other Victorian employee, regardless of who they work for, themselves, a small employer or a large company. Thank you, Acting President.